time is 2,200 hours. There I was in the thick of the jungle, unable to see what was a few meters ahead of me and with no clue of where the checkpoint was. I thought to myself, this is it, the end of my journey. Hi, my name is Avinash Ashok, and before I began my undergraduate degree, I served 2 years in the Singaporean Army. And man, that was one hell of a ride. But it was a ride that taught me some of the most crucial lessons to withstand the rain, rocks, and dirt that life throws at you. Having already helped many of my close friends by exposing them to a different way of thinking, I thought it would be best to share this advice on a wider stage as we all navigate our way through this brave, new world. For a bit more context, this entire story takes place within just 8 hours of my final mission as a cadet, merely weeks away from being commissioned as a second lieutenant. But despite this being my final mission, the stakes were incredibly high. Giving up would mean not continuing on my journey to officership. So my specific mission was to actually walk through the night in search of a checkpoint, which may sound easy enough, right? But after practically walking in circles for hours to no avail, each time passing the exact same tree, I was more fatigued than ever. And in a desperate attempt to find my way in the darkness, I turned to my instructor and asked him, "Sir, can I use my flashlight?" Without saying a word, he grabbed the flashlight out of my hand, opened the battery cap, and I watched as the AA battery fell straight into the mud, along with my hopes of finding my way to the checkpoint. He told me, "Cadet, find your way through the dark." To which I replied like most people would, "How, sir?" He asked me a simple question. "Can you see your next step?" I said, "Yes, sir." He replied, "Then just take that." So I gathered my thoughts, squinted to make use of my map and my compass, used what little moonlight I could find, and I took a step. And another, and another. And about 7,846 steps later, I reached my checkpoint. And that's when it dawned on me what taking the next step really meant. See, a lot of times in life, we have goals that are in the long term, right? This could be something small, like wanting to master a new skill or language, or something grandiose, like wanting to climb to the summit of Mount Everest. And so we get to planning. We gather our thoughts, schedule each milestone, constantly reassess our progress, and we plan and plan and plan, and then we plan and plan and plan, and then we overplan. And that's when we begin to start overthinking about every single possible outcome and scenario. Overthinking soon manifests into stress. What could go wrong, you ask yourself? And that stress ignites your fight or flight instinct. Your mind and body are either narrowing its focus and expending all of your energy in preparation for a fight, or in desperation, you take a step back and you decide to fly. You decide to seek comfort, and comfort is where you are right now. Soon enough, you're like me. Overwhelmed, stressed, desperate, and lost in a jungle with no clue of where the checkpoint is, and you end up losing all motivation. But in the words of my instructor, just take a step. Imagine, for example, you have a goal to get a bit healthier, right, as we all do. But along the journey, you found yourself in a dead end. Maybe when you look in the mirror every morning, you don't see any progress, or you just don't feel healthier or more energized. Taking the next step in this context could mean eating a little more fruit or protein in the morning, running for an extra 2 minutes on the treadmill every day, pouring a little less sugar into your coffee. That's what taking the next step really means. So when you're overwhelmed at the thought of how far away your goal is, or if you look back and are unmotivated by your progress, all you need to do is take a step. It doesn't matter whether this step is a huge leap or a small step, nor does it get any easier. Either way, you're there. Your boots muddied and your knees giving in, darkness shielding you and uncertainty lying ahead. All you need to do is take a step. As you move forward, you will gain sight of the goal that you once had no vision of. So the mission continued, and I regrouped with the other cadets to rest for a few hours under the canopy of the forest. But as my luck would have it, it began to rain. So I quickly reached into my backpack, whipped my tarp out, and began to build myself a shelter, as we had been taught 1,000 times over and over again. As I was cutting the rope to tie my tarp to a tree, my knife slipped, and I cut my finger wide open. My black glove somehow managed to turn red, with this stream of red flowing through the rest of my uniform. But with so much adrenaline pumping through my veins, and with not wanting to be more drenched in the rain, I decided to continue building the shelter. Only this time, my knife slipped and went straight through my tarp. So I sat there with a tarp that had a gaping hole in the middle, a bleeding finger, and I thought to myself, what do I do now? In that moment, I realized there was no point spending time and energy trying to fix a tarp that I just couldn't fix. There was no point cursing at the sky for the rainfall. But I knew I could fix my bleeding finger. So I was rummaging through my backpack when I had remembered that obviously I didn't pack any bandages. But I noticed a spare green sock that I had been carrying, so I cut the sock in half, wrapped my finger with it, and as I took care of myself, I began gaining more clarity. I remembered I had a raincoat. I unraveled it, wrapped myself in it, found a nice dry spot of dirt to sit on. I leaned against the tree, and I fell asleep. Looking back now, that moment taught me a truth that might be breaking news to some of you. You cannot control most things in life. As humans, we love our predictability, we love our security, we love our stability, but our obsession with wanting to control everything is what causes us to feel anxious and miserable. But here's a piece of advice. Conserve your energy and time and be wise with how you use it. We've all been in that position where we have a job interview coming up, right? For your perfect job, your dream job. I urge you to spend time and energy focusing on things that you can control. How well prepared are you? Is your mental and physical health okay? Spend your time and energy researching the company, speaking to current employees, sleeping and resting well enough before your interview. Spend your time and energy on things that ultimately you can control. But don't spend an ounce of time and energy on things that are out of your control. Don't worry about your interviewer's mood on the day of your interview, whether their coffee was stale or it was the best breakfast they've ever had. Don't worry about the other applicants, whether they're more or less qualified than you, because these are things that you cannot control. So when you're in that situation where life is hurling rain, rocks, and dirt at you, just focus on what you've prepared and fix what you can. Did you pack your raincoat? Did you bring a spare set of uniform for when yours gets muddy and sweaty? Did you bring bandages for your wounds? If you did, that's great. And I want to congratulate you for taking that effort to be prepared. But if not, like almost always the case, it's okay. That's perfectly reasonable. Just accept that you were underprepared. Accept that there were things out of your control. Accept that what you're going through is only going to shape you into who you're meant to be. There's no point beating yourself up for being underprepared or for things out of your control. So just like that, when you're in the jungle, just like I was, put that tarp away, put your anger for the rain aside, fix your bleeding finger, wrap yourself in your raincoat, lean against the tree, and go to sleep. Not even 20 minutes later, I woke up to my best friend tapping me on the shoulder. He told me that his back hurt from the heavy load that he had been carrying throughout the mission, and that the pain was only getting worse with his head laying on the roots of a tree as he slept. So I did what anyone would do for their best friend. I took off my raincoat, wrapped it up into a ball, and I handed it to him, and I told him to use it as a pillow. Now that moment may not be so significant to many of you watching this right now, here or even on YouTube, but understand that that raincoat was the only thing I had good going for me. The only good thing I had going for me. Despite being in so much pain and stress and being overwhelmed and being mentally and physically exhausted, that raincoat promised me that I would wake up dry and warm, not drenched. But now that too was gone. So I sat there, my boots muddied and my knees and elbows bruised, my fingers still bleeding, my stomach growling, my body drenched in a mix of mud, rain, and sweat. I laid my head on a pile of rocks that I'd collected so mud wouldn't get in my eye, and I fell asleep. Ever since that day, I've gained this ability to appreciate every single thing that I have, because the absence of basic things made me appreciate their presence more. I appreciate having a pillow to rest my head on, a mattress to support my back, a towel to dry myself, and a pair of clean socks on. I appreciate having a warm shower when I wake up in the morning. And when the water is cold, like it was this very morning, I appreciate having any water at all. I appreciate being free of bruises and bleeding, of being able to sleep more than 4 hours a night, of eating food that doesn't come in thick green packets with enough preservatives to make it last another 6 years. I'm not expecting you to relate perfectly to that rainy night in the jungle. But think about everything that you have been through, your toughest days and your hardest moments. Right? This could be a hard exam or assessment, a failed relationship, an impossible job deadline, maybe even being let go from a job. It could be a complication with your own health, a lost loved one. It could be anything. Think about those moments. Think about what you've been through. And think about where you are now. You made it through all of that, despite how daunting or impossible they seemed at the time. And while you're thinking about that, appreciate what you have today. Appreciate the people that you're sitting next to, the people that are surrounding you in your daily lives. Appreciate your current circumstances. Contrary to what anyone says, you don't have to lose something to know how much it means to you. So, fast forward a few hours, and we all wake up to the sound of yelling and a loud police siren. Whole lot of you, push up position now. You guys don't know how to act like officer cadets, right? Never mind. I will teach you all today. Down, down, down. Push up after push up after push up. Down, down, down. The blood rushed to my head and my arms. And I quickly looked around. I realized why we were being punished. Barely any of us had built shelters because we were lazy or tired, or we were dumb enough to cut them with our own knives. Some cadets had left their rifles unattended, which is the cardinal sin in the army. Our items were scattered on the ground, our food left out to attract insects and animals, and it made sense. So there I am, doing push-up after push-up after push-up, looking left and looking right, and I couldn't help but smile and laugh. Because what I saw was simple. I saw cadets struggling, and I struggled myself too. I saw some cadets making funny faces behind the instructor's back. I saw other cadets pretending to even do push-ups. I saw one cadet swiftly hide behind a tree so he could escape punishment entirely. But the next thing that I saw was beautiful. I saw us helping each other. I saw us motivating each other to keep our elbows straight and our knees off the ground. I saw us passing around water bottles to those who were thirsty. I saw us each taking joint responsibility for the mess that we had created, rather than blaming one another. And that's when I learned the importance of enjoying the unenjoyable and surrounding yourself with the right people. No one wants to be there, right? No one wants to be doing push-ups while your hands get imprinted into the mud. But having a negative attitude, complaining and whining, blaming one another, yelling at each other, that wasn't going to make the push-up stop. That wasn't going to make the rain stop. So when you're in that situation where having a negative attitude isn't going to change anything, which, by the way, it never does, then you might as well enjoy what you can. When you're in that tough situation, try to find the bright side and focus on it. And before you know it, the push-ups will stop, you dust your hands off, and you keep moving forward. Just like that, I urge you to surround yourself with people who want what's best for you. I urge you to surround yourself with people who motivate you proactively and actively. Surround yourself with the people who appreciate the smallest things in life, who know how to withstand the rain, rocks, and dirt that are thrown their way. Surround yourself with people who ultimately make you a better person. I appreciate every single person that I was with during that rainy night in the jungle doing push-ups beside me, because I know I would not be where I am nor who I am if not for their support. And just like that, when you're able to when you're able to enjoy the unenjoyable and surround yourself with the right people, soon enough you won't even mind facing the rain, rocks, and dirt that are thrown your way. You might even enjoy it. So, the sun rose the next morning. The rain had stopped, the birds were chirping, my finger wasn't bleeding, I washed the mud away from my boots. My tarp was still ripped, but hey, you can't win them all, right? You know, most people would look at me and tell me that those 8 hours in the jungle were hell, and that it just wasn't my day. And to those people, I say, you are completely right. You're right. But if you were to ask me right now, Avinash, would you go back and do those 8 hours again to relearn those lessons? I would do it in a heartbeat. Because those lessons and many more that I learned throughout the 2 years have transcended so many aspects of my life, and I'm hoping they will for you too. You know, it's funny. I look back at the start of the very same mission. There I was in the thick of the jungle, unable to see what was a few meters ahead of me and with no clue of where the checkpoint was, thinking to myself that this, right here, was the end of my journey. I smile and laugh now because what I thought was the end of my journey was merely just the beginning. Thank you.